I'm Julie Bermant. He was number 13 of 30 hitchhikers that we picked up that summer. And he entered the VW van and said, "I am independently wealthy. I inherited $4,000. My father, who was driving the van, snickered. My mother in the front seat smiled. But I, sitting in the back at 13 in 1971, thought $4,000 was a lot of money. Number 17 slunk into the van. Finally, he shared that when he went to the bathroom in Kansas, he came out to find his backpack and all of his belongings gone. My father gave him a $20 bill as he left the van. Number 23 and 24 were David and Mark. David had a big beard and a long ponytail. Mark was clean-shaven with short hair. And they were very careful about who stood on the side of the road with their thumb out and who hid in the bushes with their backpacks. It was a good thing for them that it was David with his big beard who had his thumb out as we drove by, because we were honoring my long-haired brother who was 17 and had stayed home that summer and for whom hitchhiking was his favorite mode of transportation. David and Mark stayed with us for 2 days. They played cards with me, the 5 of us told stories, and we all listened to the 3 tapes that I had brought with us on that 30-day trip. Cat Stevens' Tea for the Tillerman, James Taylor's Sweet Baby James, and Elton John's first album. They camped next to us that night. They put their small tent up next to our VW van in a little tiny campsite somewhere in Colorado. The next day, we were really sorry to say goodbye to them. 12 years later, I was driving north from Philadelphia, where I had just moved. I was a new nurse, and I was learning how to live on my own with a salary of $22,000. I was lonely, and so I wanted to meet up with people, and so I had decided to meet a Sierra Club group and go hiking. As I drove north, I listened to Roxanne Cash, and I looked for the place where we were supposed to meet. I drove around, and I couldn't find it. Finally, after 45 minutes, I sadly turned the car home. And then, there on the side of the road was a young man with his thumb out, and I pulled over and let him in. Almost as soon as I did that, I thought, what have I done? I'm in the middle of nowhere, and no one knows where I am, with some man with a giant backpack. My heart started racing. I so wished that my mother was in the car with her easy banter, or that my father was in the car with his Hulk and his seriousness. I looked for a place to stop, but for what felt like forever, all I saw were trees. And then, finally, there was an abandoned building, and in front of that abandoned building was a huge driveway, and that driveway was filled with the most magical bikers and their motorcycles. And I drove right into the center of them. And I turned to this young man and I said, "Would you get out of the car?" And to my immense relief, he did. And as I drove away, I turned Roxanne Cash on again, and I thought to myself about what a difference time and circumstance can make in one's perception of safety and the value of $4,000. Thank you.